Good afternoon, Winnipeg. Good afternoon, Manitoba. And for all of those listening live, you are joining the impromptu, the melded, illegal curve Manitoba Moose end of season roundtable. I am your host, Dave Minuk. I'm joined by play-by-play voice of the Manitoba Moose, Daniel Fink, keeping himself hydrated, and Austin Siragusa of Moose TV. Boys, how's it going?
Really good, Dave. Really good.
Yeah, awesome. Happy to be here.
Well, I mean, Daniel, it's almost appropriate. I guess I didn't have a fancy intro made, but I mean, this will be more than a minute, but I think it's almost appropriate if I start the show by doing this.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Just as horrifying as the first time I saw it.
It's not quite a minute. It's not quite a minute. This show is probably
roughly 120 of them.
Yeah, minutes. So we're going to be rolling along, talking about the Manitoba Moose season that was the 21-22 season. Ended a little earlier than anticipated, but was good nonetheless. I mean, after a 2019-20 season that ended, due to COVID, and then 2021 without playoffs, for the Moose to be able to have the opportunity to play in the playoffs, I mean, that's a pretty significant thing, Austin. Daniel, the important guy that he is, also the communication head of the Manitoba Moose. So he's off taking that. And so we'll continue on in his absence. But, I mean, you're there, you're around the guys all the time. So from your perspective, what was it like to have from their view, from the view within the room, that opportunity to be, playoffs with, a season with playoffs as the end result?
Yeah, it was super exciting. I mean, we talked about this last year too, but this is just such a tight-knit group. And I think maybe the COVID season at the Iceplex was a big part in that. The guys really couldn't go out and, do a whole lot of things. It was most sort of just, going into the rink, seeing the guys, going back to your place of living. And then having sort of a similar group this year, they were so tight and just so excited just to sort of have that carrot at the end of the year to sort of fight for and, fight for a playoff spot. And then, of course, to have it back here at Canada Life Center with home ice advantage, obviously super disappointed that they only got the 3 games to play in front of the home fans here. But and just talking to the guys after the games, just the support that the fans showed. And then, of course, having the games broadcast on TSN as well, that was a treat as well for the guys, maybe to have family who weren't able to tune in on AHL TV get a chance to watch it on TSN as well. So it was awesome to have the playoffs again. And obviously, like I said, not the result the team or anybody really wanted, but just a great year overall for the development of some of these Winnipeg Jets prospects and Manitoba Moose players.
And is that, I mean, we'll talk about this team for the next couple of hours, but is that one of the things that I think gets a little bit lost, was how impressive it was that the Moose staff really put together that AHL, the AHL TV package, made it ready for TSN. It wasn't as if TSN came in and created a broadcast for you guys. Like, you guys had your in-house people create that production. So, I mean, it's a testament to how hard guys like Colin Peterson, and there's so many people to name. I just like to name drop Colin if I can, but it really is amazing how hard these guys worked in such a short period of time to make this happen, because there was no certainty. I mean, it made a lot of sense. And, it's something I've talked about for quite some time, is this idea that the Moose, should have more of a presence. The TSN tends to only show the Toronto Marlies, and I get it because they have the infrastructure in place in Toronto. But I mean, it was an opportunity to kind of showcase this Moose club and, allow people, in the market to see what this team is all about.
Yeah, it was definitely a unique opportunity to be able to run it out of, basically where the Jets TV does their shows for pregame, postgame on social media. So to have Jets TV also chiming in and helping, as well as some of the TSN just producers, just sort of guiding us and showing us the ropes and how this is sort of going to work was incredible. But yeah, to have everyone come together and to put on a quality program like that, and of course having Paul Edmonds jump in on play-by-play on CJOB, and have Daniel and Derek do the play-by-play on TSN, dude, that was just such an awesome treat. And I think one of the most fun parts about that is, I mean, we're all working the game, so we don't really get a chance to, ever really see it live, but we all would set our PVRs back home. So we'd finish the game here, and then we'd all go rush home and go basically watch the game all over again, just to see how awesome it looked on TV. So that was a really cool sort of, I guess, opportunity for all of us to sort of spread our wings a little bit more, like you said, not really on TV a whole heck of a lot, but just to have that opportunity, it was super cool. And I think it turned out really well. We saw lots of positive feedback online, and I know everyone internally here was really pleased with how it turned out as well.
Well, one of the things we've talked about with this group, and we're going to have head coach Mark Morrison join us. He'll be our first of 5 guests on today's program. We're going to skip Daniel's turn here to speak because we're going to go right into some of the meat and potatoes. And again, like I said, Austin, one of the beauties of what you do is that you're around these guys all the time. So you get a chance to see what it's like at training camp, what it's like at practice, what it's like in the room, what these guys are like on the ice, what they're like away from the rink. You know, one of the things we talk about is that idea of inclusivity. And who's the media, who covers his team, and I see it a lot. You obviously, who is right in the mix, but a lot of times people don't necessarily understand that. And hockey players, and it's a team, blah blah blah.
Yep.
But this team, especially because there was a large number returning from last season, which with AHL, there's not always a lot of continuity. Because you had that continuity, because you had that opportunity to bring back a very similar group, bring back a leadership group, that they had, it really did from the get-go allow this team to bring everyone in. And again, but they didn't have to, right? Like there's no obligation.
Yeah.
Guys, especially at the AHL level, are all fixated on getting to the NHL. That's 90% of them. Not 90%, but you know what I mean? Then the number is a high number of guys who want to be able to get to that next level and take that next step. So if that's the case, Daniel's looking really close to us right now, but if that's the case, so then what do? You have to figure out a way to bring them all together. That's usually the coaching staff responsibility, but in this instance, like we talked about, it's the leadership group, not just the guys who wear the letters, but a lot of guys. And again, like I said, how was that from your perspective?
Yeah, it was honestly almost like everybody who was on that returning team was really open and welcoming to the new guys who joined the team. Like, I think it was Jeff Malott who might have said it in one of his interviews near the end or at the end of the year, where there was that time in January where we were on the road and everyone was sort of picking up COVID, and people were ill and not able to be in the lineup, and there were so many different faces and guys coming up from the ECHL as well. So to have that happen and have guys who maybe just come into the room for the first time, just before warm up and sort of be introduced to everybody, it's obviously a challenge at times, but there are those guys like Jeff Malott, just to name one off the top of my head, or Austin Bagansky, Luke Johnson, some guys who've been around this league for a while too, and of course the leadership group with Jimmy Olney, obviously David Gustafson too, and Cole Maier. But there's just so many guys in this group that were just so easy to bring other guys into the team who maybe weren't here from the start, and just sort of integrate them into the room. And like you said, that probably does start with last year and how close everyone was during that COVID year at the Iceplex. But it was just really cool to see how tight everyone was. And then of course that translated to the end of the year as well with that little run they went on. So it was a great year for just showing off how close this group was as well.
All right, well, we'll bring Daniel Fink in now that he's done big timing us in his phone call. So Dan, Austin and I were just talking about the inclusivity of this group and his unique perspective. You also have a unique perspective as you travel with the team. And like I said, you're communications director, but you're also the play-by-play voice. So maybe you can share some of your thoughts of this group and how, again, similar to last year, how unique they were.
Yeah, sorry if I have to big dog you again. I'm running tech support as well here today, so just having a couple of issues getting one of our guests set up. So I might have to duck out right away again. But it was a great group, and you know what? I've been kind of working around hockey teams now for about 10, 12 years, and they all have their own unique personality no matter the season, and so that's really interesting to see year to year. And this was definitely one of the last couple seasons, really, but this season was one of the best groups that I've had the pleasure of dealing with. Not that there's really ever any bad groups to deal with in hockey teams, but how they were able to come together, how they were able to just interact, even with, folks like the office staff and dealing with our people in the front office, and anything we needed from them to kind of help with promos and videos and things like that. They were right on board with community relations stuff. They were jumping in. You don't have to really drag guys into anything. They just jump in and do that stuff. So on top of being a great group for the hockey side of things, they also did so much away from the rink together, and that was really what I took away. You'd be on the road and maybe out to find a bite to eat, and you'd see 14, 15 of them all together eating dinner. So that's a bit of a rarity. Usually they kind of break off into small groups, but it was really impressive to see this way this group kind of stuck together and really, really in every aspect we're a team.
Well, that's let's bring in the head coach of the Manitoba Moose, Mark Morrison. He'll join us right away to discuss his team, his first season as head coach of the Manitoba Moose. Here he is right now. Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
And so, we'll start at the end, which obviously was the least positive element of the season, but you've had 10 days or so to reflect on the end of your campaign. And had you had any different thoughts than when we spoke to you at the end of season media availability?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I probably calmed down a little bit about the shock treatment there that happened near, it always ends so quickly. And then, of course, the way it ended, I was, just very quick. And so, yeah, I mean, I think overall, when I had some time to reflect on things, a lot of players got better. There was some improvement with a lot of guys, and overall, we had 41 wins, and that was hard work. And when you have 41 wins, you're usually competing very hard to get those, and so that's where the players improve. So so many competitive games that we were in, would have helped with their development.
And when you look at the season, and especially throughout all the ups and downs of that COVID time and the injuries that your group went through, I mean, do those opportunities the guys had to kind of take on new roles or expanded roles, is that another one of those elements that kind of aids in their development?
Yeah, for sure. And that went on all year. I mean, we right from COVID to injuries to taxi squad to call ups to the Jets, and it put players in a lot of different situations where they weren't used to. So it was kind of out of their comfort zone, but that helped in their development in a huge way. I can go over, and I've said this before with Morales, who was a fourth line centerman at times, was our first line centerman. Jones was on the power play, not really more of a penalty killer, but took power play time. And I could go through the lineup and all the different situations that players played in outside their comfort zone and improved for it. And so they built confidence in that and ran with it. I don't think there's anybody that didn't have a positive over those special areas that they got to play in.
You talk about new roles. Of course, this was also a new role for you, coming to be the head coach of the Manitoba Moose in the AHL after your time with the Anaheim Ducks. Obviously, just take me through what that was like coming back to this organization. Of course, you worked previously as an assistant here with the Moose, but just to come back and be a head coach, what was maybe sort of some of the differences and some of the challenges and just some of the positives you took away from your first year here?
Yeah, I don't know how many difficulties I had. Like when I think a lot of it had to do with the staff that I inherited. Inherited a great staff, and a lot of them I already worked with. So there's a lot of comfort there. Like, I'd already spent a year working with Eric Dubois, who was an assistant here for me. And so, I already had a relationship there, and I don't think things couldn't have gone any better with Marty Johnson and myself. Got along great. So, and then of course, Spike, I worked with, down the road, and our medical staff I had worked with. So there's a lot of familiar faces there, is what I'm trying to say. And so the transition was very easy. The staff made it that way. And again, this group of players made it very easy because they were very easy to coach. And we didn't really have any outlier players that were, causing trouble or hard to get along with or had special needs. Like everybody got along. And so I guess I consider myself very fortunate to come back to the organization in the shape it was in.
I'm not going to take offense at your answer, but one of the things you guys did that I thought was unique, because we've never experienced that before, was that you actually had your assistant coaches speaking after games. And now, the AHL is a developmental league, right? It's a developmental league for players, sometimes for media, but it's also potentially for coaches. What was the thought process behind allowing guys like Marty Johnson, Eric Dubois, we never got Richard Bowie, but those kind of guys to speaking to the media after the games?
Yeah, I think that all came from me being an assistant coach for so long, Dave. Like it is a development league, and it's a development league for coaches. And not only is it developing for coaches, I feel like if coaches have more input, more buy-in, just like players, they're going to go further for you. And I thought that, that wasn't just for the media's sake, but Eric Dubois and Marty Johnson both did pre-scouts. They both ran the dressing room at times they both ran drills on the ice. They had a lot of responsibility. And So not only did they face the media at times, but they had a lot of head coaching experience throughout the year, and I felt like they did an excellent job with it. I feel like the players bought into it, and I think you get a little bit more respect from the players when you're standing in the middle of the dressing room and doing a pre-scout, for example, and they understand how much knowledge those assistant coaches Dubois and Johnson had, and I felt like it was the better for the whole group.
And I mean, kind of sticking on this theme with the assistant coaches, when you have those opportunities to kind of let guys shoulder some of the load as well, does that kind of help, not even just with the development of those guys and everyone who's trying to advance their careers, but also just to kind of try and almost keep everybody fresh through a long season?
Yeah, I think the different voices certainly helps. And I think the way the different voices help is as long as we're all on the same page and we're sending the same message, it works. So they're hearing that message from, 3 and 4 different coaches and not just the same coach all the time. And you're right, it does keep it fresh. Sometimes, you play back-to-back games and I'm yelling on the bench and I'm yelling in the dressing room. They don't want to hear me on Monday morning. They want to hear somebody else. They've had enough of your voice. But I thought it worked excellent, and it'll be something that we definitely carry on with.
Mark, what can you just also say about the leadership group? Maybe not even just the leadership group, but some of the guys who've been on this team for a while and we're sort of just integrating some of those new guys into the lineup as well. There was that span in January where, there were a lot of guys dealing with COVID or other illnesses and weren't able to go in the lineup. And there were guys coming up from the ECHL, just before warm-up to play, but they seem to get integrated into that locker room so quickly. Just what can you say about just that group and just sort of that closeness of that group as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was excellent. I mean, we talked about this a lot, I think, throughout the years, how the group pulled for each other and how they, didn't care if they didn't get called up, but their partner got called up to the Jets. And, I wouldn't say they didn't care, but they certainly supported it. And I think, it wasn't just the leadership group. There was a lot of players outside the leadership group that I also had leadership skills, but the whole group really had a lot of respect for each other. And I think that's the key ingredient there, is that they respected everybody's different opinions at all times. And, everybody was inclusive with each other. And you can say that the leadership core group was good, and they were. But a lot of people outside that leadership group also were very good. So I remember when we were trying to make that group, that core group that we talked to and ran things by, I think we cut it at 8, but we could have had it at 16. Like it was tough to make a small group.
Coach, one of the things we talk about is the collective group, the idea that you have to balance winning and development. But you seem to do both. You seem to win, like we said, this is the second most wins this team has ever produced, and in 4 less games than the 17-18 group. But also you developed. I mean, you had 7 guys make their NHL debut with the Winnipeg Jets. So what does that say to you? And obviously COVID made it a different, world still, but there must be a lot of pride in all of those players being able to take that next step in their development.
Yeah, like we're proud of that for sure. And, I think a lot of, you talk about that mixture of winning and development, and, they come hand in hand. And early on in the show, I said, we had 41 wins, and those are competitive games that you're playing in when you're winning a game in the American Hockey League. So, when you push to win and you push to work to get that win, it helps development, and it helps them play at a fast pace. It helps them, play in their own zone. You're doing all the things right when you're trying to win a hockey game. You're blocking shots. You're getting pucks off the walls out of your zone. It's all compete. And I thought we did an excellent job of pushing them to get the 41 wins throughout the season.
One of the most kind of hyped up parts of this team is coming into the season and then throughout the season into the playoffs was that young defense core with all the skill on it. What was it like kind of keeping an eye on those guys and watching them throughout a season?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think it was one of the things in training camp I was most excited about was that D core and how they move the puck and how they can jump into the play and how they kept the puck alive in the offensive zone. We had a ton of shots on net this year, and a lot of that came from our D being very active in the offensive zone down the walls and keeping pucks alive and being part of the offense. They were a huge part of our team, and I was excited when I first saw them, and they never let me down throughout the year. Saw some brilliant offensive play from Hinola, Chisholm, Gawanke, even Kovacevic, and they all brought it, and it was good to see. And I think that whole group, I think, improved and got better. I wish we could have gone one more round in the playoffs for their development, but I think we saw in the playoffs their pace and compete level pick up. And I don't think I saw Hinola play any better hockey than I saw him play in the playoffs.
I do want to just circle back to the playoffs just for a second there, Coach. I mean, going down 0-2 in the series, battling back to tie at 2-2, and then having that final game here at Canada Life Center. You talk about, not really having a whole lot of playoff experience in this group, but to have 5 games in that first round against a tough opponent like Milwaukee, who you faced, 12 times during the regular season already. Just what do you think that'll do for the group going forward, to already have that 1 year of playoff experience under their belt?
Well, I mean, I hope, we had discussions at the end of the year with the players, and I hope we got to the bottom of what we could have got done better. And at the end of the day, that's why you do the 5 playoff games, and why we were in them is, we wanted to get that experience, and hopefully we got it. And you can look back to lots of NHL organizations that have gone through the playoffs. It took Edmonton a few, it took the Islanders a few. To get that experience, to want to, to know what to do when you get into a playoff game. So I hope it helped. We'll see down the road.
Coach, one of the things that we saw, and it was a big change from the beginning of the year to the end, was that idea of fans. I mean, the playoffs are a different animal for the players. They're a different animal for the coaches. How enjoyable was it for you to be able to see Canada Life have some life in it and actually have a fan base that was really excited? You didn't really have big club usually sucks up a lot of the oxygen in this province, but they were already out. So you guys were the focus. And what was that like for you to be able to see everyone getting excited about this Moose Club?
Yeah, it was excellent. And it's, Dave, it was one of the things that probably I was so disappointed about at the end of the year, because that energy in the building really got everyone excited on our team and in our organization. And I would have liked to continue that on. That was one of the things that, got everybody really excited. The crowd was excellent. And I think for the first time in 2 or 3 years, I came into the coach's office after the game and said, the fans had an impact on that game. Like, we were excited. And it was nice to see that the excitement and the energy in the building. And we hope to bring that back, but it was excellent.
Hey, ticket packages available now at moosehockey.com. Come cheer on the boys. But as you look towards an off season, I mean, it's a little different in the American Hockey League than, say, the NHL. You don't have necessarily a draft to worry about. I mean, free agency is still a thing, but you're kind of beholden to the NHL clubs. So what does the off season look like for you and your staff?
Well, we're going to go over things that we can do better. We certainly have to keep everything fresh here. So we need to find new drills, new ways of teaching, just to make sure that it doesn't get old for the players. So that's the biggest part is making sure that we find new ways to teach the systems and what systems we can tweak and be better at, and what players individually we can help with skills. So it's basically just reflecting on a lot of things, watching video and having meetings where we decide what's best for players individually and for the team.
Okay, well, I'm gonna let you go on this last one. Have you started fishing yet?
That's how it all started, right, Dave?
Yeah, it is how it started.
That's how it all started. No, I haven't. I'm gonna go back to Victoria on Sunday and hopefully have the boat in the water Sunday night.
Okay, and just quickly, so what does the summer look like for you and your staff?
Well, we have some time off here, everyone's doing different things. Marty's going to spend some time with his family, and same with Eric, and takes a little bit of time off. But at the end of June, we'll get back together and start discussing, what I went on about earlier, individual players and how we can help them individually with skills and then systems and different drills and how we keep it fresh. So we'll start talking about that in July, and then the team starts the contracts and the signings start coming in, so we know, what we're going to look like, and start putting, like lines together in, just on paper, and see how different things look. But the next month here in June is pretty much our holiday month, and then we get back onto it in July.
All right. Well, enjoy the holidays and enjoy the fishing in Victoria.
Yeah, I appreciate all your coverage throughout the year. It's really nice to see, and you're there all the time, and that's much appreciated.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Have a great June, and we'll talk to you very soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
There he goes. Mark Morrison, head coach of the Manitoba Moose. Good first year for him because, I mean, obviously it didn't go as far as they would have liked, but still, I mean, it might, when you have that opportunity to get a group like this, I would imagine from a coaching perspective, it's got to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, development is king in the American Hockey League. Obviously, you want to win. Obviously, you want to hang some banners and hoist some trophies. But at the end of the day, the Moose are here to help the Winnipeg Jets win a Stanley Cup and hang some of those banners. So if those prospects are taking the steps that they need to and are progressing along, that's what you want to see from your AHL club.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess we're not going to have to wait very long to have someone new join the conversation, because leading scorer of the Manitoba Moose just got in there. He beat Jeff Malott right towards the end of that season. And that is, of course, Mikey Eyssimont, Colorado product. Mikey, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for joining us. So, Mikey, you've had 10 days or so to kind of let the season sink in the end, obviously not the way you would have wanted, but what now that you've had a little time to reflect, what are your thoughts on the 21-22 campaign?
I mean, yeah, didn't end how we wanted it to. You can see a lot of guys were disappointed, and it's hard to watch. The AHL still going on right now. That series just wrapping up that we could be in right now. So that's tough to watch, but that's just the way it is in a lot of seasons. So it's definitely, I think we're going to be fired up for next year.
Yeah, does coming so close to coming all the way back in that series and moving on, does that kind of leave a bit of extra hunger maybe coming into next season?
Yeah, it always does. Hopefully you'll see that in training camp. Guys will come back in shape and, more experienced and, just be even better as a team.
How enjoyable was this first season for you, though, Mikey, with the Moose? I mean, you obviously signed a 2-year contract with the Winnipeg Jets last offseason, but to be leading scorer of the Manitoba Moose, obviously also playing your first NHL game at the Bell Center in Montreal. I mean, overall, just how did you enjoy this year for the club?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Starting off, training camp was great. Meeting everyone, it was a smooth transition moving to Canada. And, started off the season really well, ended it really well. And obviously that game in Montreal was, the most fun I've ever had. Definitely more fun than I could have ever imagined, for sure.
And, Mikey, we talked to you at the end of season media availabilities, and you talked about the idea of picking Winnipeg because it was a good spot for you. It was a good opportunity for you. So, and you're not unfamiliar, even though you're a Colorado guy and you were in the Kings organization for the last number of years, but you've played in this region, obviously in the USHL and college. So what was it, maybe expanding on that opportunity that you saw here in Winnipeg that you may not have seen in other places?
Yeah, picking Winnipeg was, I went, with my heart and decided that was the best opportunity for me as far as, my main goal being to play in the NHL. So, as far as my trajectory, it's a 2-year deal, and I think that I've put myself in a good spot. I obviously would have liked to have had more games last year, but the fact that I got a taste, leads me to believe that I can hopefully establish myself at that level next year. And if not that year, it'll be the year after that. Yeah.
Was there any sort of adjustment this season? I mean, you played all your hockey kind of south of the border. Obviously, you may have made some trips up to Canada to play along the way, but you come north, you're in a completely new organization, you're in a new city. Was there a bit of an adjustment for you this season, or were you able to just kind of go with the flow?
Hey, there was definitely an adjustment, but I don't think it was anything too difficult. I played in the Pacific Division for 3 years, and I kind of always considered that to be the toughest division with the toughest guys. So playing in that division for 3 years, I think, prepared me for any division that I might face, and ultimately the AHL as a whole is there to prepare you for the NHL. So yeah, I think just a little less like toughness in this division as opposed to the Pacific, coming from what I was used to before.
You talked about how quickly you got sort of integrated into the dressing room just after training camp, but what can you just say about just that leadership group, or maybe just the whole group in general when it came to bringing new guys into the lineup? Like I said earlier, there was that time in January where there were guys going down with COVID and other illnesses and all that sort of stuff, but there were new guys coming in at all times. But just what can you say about the closeness of the group, I guess, and just how easy they were able to bring people into the room?
Yeah, I guess I'm not exactly sure who you mean by the leadership group. Guys are leaders in their own way there, and there was always someone being able to kind of help someone along. So I was happy to do that for as many guys as I could, and guys definitely were there for me as well. But even guys like Nick Hutchinson comes in late into the year, and he even was able to show some leadership qualities as well around some of the younger guys, and do pretty well that way, which I thought was really cool. So you just see it. You see guys kind of building their leadership qualities throughout the year, and it's an environment that kind of promotes that and really just helps everyone along. So it makes us all better people.
We're joined on today's end of season roundtable by Moose leading scorer Mikey Eyssimont. Mikey, one of the things you seem to do, and again, if people paid attention, they would have noticed with your game, you love to get under guys' skin. If there was a scrum, I would often look and I'd say, okay, Mikey is probably going to be in that scrum somewhere. Is that an important element? I mean, you produced the most points you've ever produced, goals, assists, points this year as a pro. So is that an important element of the game to kind of get you engaged into a hockey game?
I don't think I need to be in every scrum to be engaged. I definitely think, a fight here and there throughout the year definitely has helped me in the past. So I'll try to get into a couple a year, maybe more if I have to. But it's this league, it seems like anytime you go to the net, and the whistle blows, someone's going to try to grab you, whether it's for no reason. And I'm never going to shy away to it. That's just the way it is in this league. Definitely, gets under guys' skins that's non-negotiable for me to go to the net. But, it also is a little aggravating to me that you can't play hard without guys trying to do so much after the whistle. So as much as I was in it after the whistles, it's usually not me, punching a guy in the mouth or something like that. I'm usually just kind of on the other end, and I'm coming back next shift to do it again. So
for you, Mikey, this season, Goose was kind of talking about that COVID time and injury time when so many guys were down. You were one of the guys, because I think you got COVID a little before that all kind of happened. So you were in the lineup through that whole stretch. And you, along with some other guys, really had to push the pace, had to be the guys night in and night out. So how valuable was that for your development to kind of be relied upon so heavily?
Yeah, the best ability is availability. So I think that if I keep my body where it is, obviously COVID comes around and you don't know where you got it. It happens out of nowhere and it keeps you out for 5 to 10 days. And it's such a bummer when it happens. But that happened to me early in the year. It was a long 10 days, but coming back, I knew that I had a chance to, I think it was 90 to 120 days that I was for sure safe to be able to stay healthy and help the team. So I definitely, saw a few different roles throughout that time, and just tried to bring my best, for the coaching staff, what they needed out of me. I think they were always pretty clear about it. And if they weren't, there's an open door to go ask and talk to them, which was always a great thing. So I definitely pride myself on, always being available and ready to play. So, if something happens, it's a real bummer, but obviously that's if you're any player.
What can you say about the playoffs this year, Mikey? It was the first year in quite some time where there was sort of a normal playoffs, but to have, fans in buildings again, the Packed Canada Life Center in Game 5, they're obviously not the result you wanted, but what does that do for you guys, I guess, going forward and into next year as well?
Yeah, I mean, you could see it. We went down 0-2 in Milwaukee, where there weren't many fans, and it was a little bit more of a dead building. And I think we had lost quite a few games in their building this year, more than we wanted. So coming home, I mean, we won 2 games. That's hard to do by itself. And that third one was definitely a heartbreaker, but just absolutely incredible atmosphere. And I hope that the city and the fans and obviously the Jets were behind us, and we'll continue to grow kind of our fan base there as an AHL team. I think you're starting to see how crazy those games can get.
Mikey, Austin mentioned your NHL debut, and doing it in a city like Montreal it's special anywhere you would do it, but a city like Montreal takes it to the next level. So now that you've had some time and the season's over, do you have any more thoughts on being able to make your NHL debut, and what was it like, being able to share that with your family, even if they weren't there, that you were able to get that opportunity?
Yeah, it was. I mean, people say you have your cup of coffee in the NHL. I can say I had my hot dog in the NHL because they're famous for giving out hot dogs after the games, I guess. So it was obviously incredible for my family. They were insanely proud of me, and I was extremely thankful to them. But I mean, it was. I kind of alluded to it earlier. I've always dreamed of it. I always knew how amazing that day was going to be once it came, but it exceeded all expectations. Skating around out there, I didn't really feel nervous. I didn't feel out of place. I just really I think I did a good job at taking it in and playing my game, but it was more fun than I had even expected it to be.
Daniel's muted. Sorry, Daniel's having a problem there.
Lost my mouse there for a second. That's always great. So, I mean, as you look into your next season of your contract with the Jets, I mean, obviously the goal is to play in the National Hockey League. So how do you make that next step to being an everyday NHLer?
I mean, I think the key word was, you said it, every day. I took the week off to kind of say bye to some teammates, get some stuff in order, and make it back to Denver here. And I've skated a couple times now. I'm starting my workouts. I'm kind of starting to ramp up for it feels like off season already. So I think I'm trying to get a little bit of a jump, but that's just kind of the type of summer I want to have. I don't want to take time off and have to get back into it. My body feels good, and I feel ready to go. So a little bit of easing into the summer, but for the most part, I'm hitting the ground running, and have those 3 months till camp to make sure my body's feeling good, make sure my mind's feeling right. And, I try to elevate my game every season of pro. It's been 4 years. I think at some point during every season, I've been playing my best hockey I've ever played. So if I can continue to have that development mindset, then it's going to happen again next year. And I think that might, push me over the edge to achieving that goal.
And I remember you talked about at your end of your media availability, you have this sort of set plan or set sort of schedule for yourself that you like to try and follow heading into training camp. But just what does the rest of the summer look like for you? Obviously, you said you're heading back home, potentially maybe seeing some friends or just taking some time away from the rink. Just sort of what does a summer look like for Mikey Eyssimont?
Yeah, no, I don't know if I said I was taking time away from the rink. I've been skating.
I was going to say, you probably don't. There's no shot.
But that's what I mean. I love to do it, and I don't like to take that time off because it takes a little bit to get back into it, and it's a little frustrating. So I try to keep the confidence high on the ice. And, summer, I call it, I've kind of been just working on my blueprint the past 4 summers and trying to see what I like to do, how I like to do it. It's a lot of skating. It's a lot of workouts. It's trying new things all the time: tennis, running, biking, spike ball with friends. But obviously I'm getting to that age where my friends are getting married. So there's weddings involved and a couple trips as well. So,
Mikey, are you the kind of player who keeps mementos? I mean, you had a hat trick this season. You had obviously making your NHL debut. Are you the kind of guy who wants your first jersey? Are you the guy who wants to keep a puck? Do you want to keep a hat? Anything like that when you, like I said, when you've gone through the season and you've achieved some of these goals?
Yeah. So as far as mementos, all the hat trick pucks, first game, those go to my mom. The jerseys go to, my mom or my friends, or my dad, I mean, and then the shorts and the hats you pick out of the big duffel bag and hand it out to people or use it for workouts in the summer. But as far for me, I don't really keep any mementos around with me unless they're, something really special. So, yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us on this end of season wrap up roundtable. So thanks very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your summer in Colorado, and we'll see you back here in Winnipeg for training camp.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks.
Thanks, Mikey. Appreciate it. All right, there he goes. Mikey Eyssimont, leading scorer of the Manitoba Moose. Unexpected leading scorer because, of course, going into that last home stretch, it was Jeff Malotz for the taking, and then Mikey Eyssimont had himself quite a few games against Abbotsford. Actually, the entire team did. I think, what did you guys outscore them 13-1 in those 2 games at home?
Yeah, it was something like 13-2 or 13. Yeah, so 13-2, 13-3, something like that.
Yeah.
But that was a wild game too, because I remember I think he had the 2 goals by the end of the second period. That might be remember, or at least early in the third. And I remember turning to Maier and going, you know what? We haven't had a hat trick all season long, and it wouldn't surprise me. It turned out it's been longer than that. It was all the way until December 2019, I think it was, that the last hat trick had been scored for the Moose. I think that was Seth Griffith did that. But so and of course he walks in and wires that one right onto the bar. And I think people were a little rusty. I think it had been so long since we had a Moose hat trick. It took a little bit for the hats to start to come down, and then once they got going, it was good. But that was quite the game that he had to finish off the season.
Austin, he was such an important player, and people don't necessarily, he wasn't a household name before, of course, because, signed by the Jets, got that 2-year deal, but we didn't really know much about him. You tend to have the blinders on what's going on in the Central Division and that sort of thing. So, he's coming from the Pacific, like he talked about, and even his description of the Pacific, it's not something we see very often, right? So it's not something that, you're necessarily that familiar with. But like I said, he was one of those players that was integral. And when I said, in the mix, I didn't mean like he was fighting every scrum, but I mean, let's be realistic. If there was something going on, if a guy was sliding by the center ice and there were a few players, Mikey Eyssimont would tend to give a little bit of a shot. So he just he's not a big guy, 6 feet. So he's not a big bruiser, but he just gave it. And it seemed to, like I said, work with his game because he was engaged almost every single game.
Yeah, he was everywhere on the ice, right? I mean, he was, like you said, mucking up in the corners, but also, like we saw in that final regular season game, burying 3 in the back of the net. So a very highly skilled guy, but just not afraid to, like I said, muck it up either. And that was great. And you really saw him sort of come out of his shell more as the year went on too. I mean, that's definitely what I think we saw. Just working, alongside the guys on a day-by-day basis. But and maybe that also has to do with the room and how close everyone is and just, being able to be yourself in the room too. But just like, you really saw his confidence and his personality come out. And of course, he dunked on me too in the interview saying he's not going to take any time away from the rink and he's probably skating, right after this interview. So, but no, he definitely came out of his shell a lot. And I'm excited to see what he does next year come training camp.
Well, I mean, he gave us a couple of great lines. I mean, of course, he described Cole Maier, who will the alternate captain of the Manitoba Moose, as a can of Coke. And so that was an all-time classic. And of course, we were told, I believe by Declan Chisholm, I could be wrong, that he's a snappy dresser. So I could have sworn that Declan told us that in one of the chit chats. So
he has his own very unique style. That's
the way it was described to us in a media availability, I think, after a practice. So anyway, so we're going to be joined by Declan coming up in about 5 minutes. This has been the end of season roundtable of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, combined with, of course, I should probably give you guys the props because there's 2 of you. There's only 1 of me. Usually I've got Ezzy and Drew to kind of back me up as my muscle, but no such luck. I got to deal with you guys. You guys have the majority today. So we'll call it a Manitoba Moose end of season roundtable as it's written in the top corner above Austin's head. So, any other thoughts, guys? Like, just as we've talked about the Moose team in general, we've talked about Daniel. I mean, I knew you had some issues early in the show, but just in terms of Austin and I were talking about that idea of inclusivity and this group and what we saw from our own vantage point. So like I said, me, someone who's in the media, in the press box, watching practices, you obviously with a different, unique perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of touched on it earlier, and we talked about the inclusivity being such an important part. And I think I mean, when you step back and look at the larger picture, it's what you want every room to be. Especially like, I mean, we see, and as hockey and everything like that, and the culture of the sport can progresses, and you want to improve, I mean, whether it's hockey culture or your own workplace, things like that. You want everybody to feel comfortable. You want everybody to be able to be themselves no matter what. And I think that this team really set a really good blueprint for that. And that culture tends to stick around because you're able to keep some guys in the room for next season. There should be plenty of guys returning, whether it's Jets prospects or some of the AHL contracted players like Captain Jimmy Olney or Cole Maier as well. Like, these are the guys that carry that forward from season to season. And then you instill those values in your younger players that are coming in and working their way through the organization, and it filters on up. And that's kind of maybe one of the underrated important parts of an AHL team is that's where it starts. That's where the culture for your NHL team starts. And the Moose have certainly given themselves a nice base to pass on to the Jets as well.
Well, let's get it started with the next generation of Manitoba Moose players. Jets prospect, 2018 fifth rounder, Declan Chisholm. And Declan is going to join us right now on the end of season Moose roundtable. Hey, Declan, how are you?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Going very well, boys.
Going great.
Hi, Chiz.
Hey, Goose.
There we go. So, Declan, we've started the show off talking about the season and how good it was. Obviously not the ending you guys wanted, but just looking at it overall, and, I know you've had about 10 days to kind of think about it. How do you evaluate it as a total?
I think we had a really good regular season. We showed how strong and how deep our team was, and how tight of a group we had that year. And you don't get that often. And I'm thankful that many guys are returning, and we went into the playoffs very confident, and we all believed in one another. And then obviously didn't turn out how we want it to be, but that's just how playoff series can go. I mean, you can dominate a team and outshoot them, but if they capitalize on more chances, then it's just not going to go your way. And that's what happened.
And Declan, I mean, as you look at that playoffs, I mean, you had a pretty solid season with 30 points during the regular season, but you almost had to kind of hit a different level in the postseason. You had 7 points in that series. So what was clicking so well for you?
I think come playoff time, it's been like this my whole career. I find another level of passion for the game. I'm just so excited, and my compete level just rises. And I just get so excited to play. I mean, there's nothing like playoff hockey, and I feel like once you play it, it's just like this feeling in your gut that is a fire burning. And I normally get that every playoff run, and I had it this run. And things went well, things were clicking, and I just wanted to win. Honestly, I'm just trying to do anything I can out there to help the team win.
Was it even a little more special this time around, Declan, just because I guess you had, fans in the building this time around? You saw how crazy the fans were getting in that playoff run here at Canada Life Center. But to go from last year where, you're playing at the Iceplex or, playing on the road in other Canadian markets where there's no fans at all, to finally going back to some sort of normalcy with fans in the building, that must have given a big boost to you guys too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could tell on the bench and everything, whenever we would score and the building would erupt, it was so nice to hear fans cheering you on. And again, just builds on that passion and makes you want to play even harder in front of the fans. And we were lucky enough to have such a good group of guys. I mean, everyone was so supportive and so positive on the bench and in the room, and just a group of so many leaders together. And I think that just goes to show, I mean, how good our regular season was and how much we wanted to perform in front of the fans also.
Declan, is that something that is unique for you, at least with this season? I mean, I know you guys had a great group last year as well, but just in terms of how supportive you guys were for each other, because like I said, I've never seen it where guys would fill the press. Johnny was making his NHL debut, the press box was full. And Dylan Sandberg was telling us a story at his end of season media availability when Jeff was making his NHL debut in Chicago, and you guys were all surrounding a TV trying to watch it together. So is that something that is really unique to this group, that even though you guys all want to make the NHL, and even though you guys are all super competitive individually, that you guys are all celebrating each other's success and all making that jump to the NHL?
I wouldn't say it was unique for me. I mean, coming from junior in Peterborough, I had a very similar group. Everyone was very tight knit, supportive, and we would do similar things like that. And guys coming from other teams, like would mention, this is very weird. Guys, you go out to a restaurant, you have 10 to 12 guys at one table. If there was a team gathering, every single guy shows up. I mean, they would just say it's not normal for the league. And I think it builds such a great positive atmosphere in the room. And yeah, I mean, like we were all so supportive of one another, wanting to see each other succeed. And that's all you can really ask from your teammates. And it was so awesome to be a part of.
Well, and just kind of on the topic of guys getting the opportunities to make their debuts in the NHL, you got a chance to have yours and along one of your teammates in Dylan Sandberg. So what was that experience like? And of course, a few extra games at the top level.
That was insane. I mean, it didn't even feel real when it happened. I just remember like kind of like blacking out in warm-ups. And I mean, like seeing my family there too was awesome. They got to drive out to Detroit, and doing it with Sammy was another crazy thing too. I mean, we've kind of gone through the development camps and main camps all together, and then making that debut was just like a special moment together. And then obviously playing the game. I mean, I wasn't even like thinking about the crowd, but it was just a sold out like arena, and I was just so focused in on the game. And I was very surprised on how calm I was after the first few shifts. I mean, the first few shifts I was just like shaking my boots, but I mean, after that, it was just such a dream come true, and almost like a relief knowing that like I can do this and I belong there. And that's now a reality and a goal I want to achieve.
And of course, it was also just a big year for you too with the Moose, just with the amount of points you were putting up in the regular season and the playoffs. What do you attribute that to? Is it just because you've been playing with these D-men now for another full season? Previously to that year in the Iceplex, is it just more, I guess, chemistry building with those guys? Just what led to that success this year during the regular season as well?
Yeah, I think it's a experience, and then my teammates. I mean, when you have guys that are working hard every night and doing everything they can every night. I mean, I was fortunate enough to play with a lot of great players on our team, and especially our D-man just being in my position. I mean, you're going to look to the guys that are in your position, and they're all pushing each other. I mean, everyone's such a good defenseman in our organization, and I think that just creates such a competitive atmosphere also. And you just want to get better and push each other. And then, I mean, me and Leon were just clicking all year and kind of feeding off one another. And it's nice to play with a guy who thinks like me out there. And we were very similar in the O zone and then wanting to jump up in the rush. So I think just all in all, everything clicked well this year, and I want to keep building off that. And yeah, I want to thank like coaching and my teammates for the way the year went.
Well, I mean, I'm going to piggyback off that answer now, Declan, because that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because Eric Dubois seems to have done a fantastic job, because every single defenseman has, excelled. And even guys like Simon Lundmark, who didn't have quite the opportunity because he was the new guy and he was, the seventh defenseman, let's say. When the opportunity came, he jumped into the lineup and he was playing a big role when a lot of you guys were up with the NHL. So what can you say about Eric Dubois and his role in your development this season and, in the last couple of seasons, I should say?
I think, yeah, he does a great job. He's so passionate about his job, and every practice we're working on little things and how to speed up the game, how to process the game maybe a little faster. And I think it goes to show how well or how good of a job he's done developing the D-man in this organization. And honestly, the whole coaching staff and the whole organization has just like worked on such great developmental things in practice that apply to games. And I think, you can just see our D-core is just such a talented group. And I mean, guys are knocking on the door that aren't cracking the lineup because we're such a talented group, but these guys would play on any other team and they would do just as good. I mean, we're just so talented back there. He's done such a good job.
I also want to touch on just the room, Declan. I mean, it's your second season with the Moose. And there was also just, we talked, at the end of the year too, just about how close it was and how, there might have been different guys coming in the lineup at different times, but it was just, a seamless transition for those guys to come back into the room and just sort of learn the guys. And even Ville Heinola at the end of the year saying that guys were laughing at his jokes, which he's not normally used to either. But just what can you say about how tight this group was and how able they were able to, get new guys into the room?
Yeah, it was wild how fast guys would jump in and just be right a part of the team and be cracking jokes. And it almost seemed like they were there the whole year. Like even guys would mention, like I remember Bon Giovanni would come in. He was like, wow, man, like such a great group, like just fit in right away. And I remember him just cracking jokes, and it was like, he was just like been there the whole year. And same with Hank and Dave who came over. And it was just such a great experience. And I think coming in as a new guy, no one was nervous. I mean, the first day maybe, but after that, they were just so comfortable, and it just makes such a great environment to succeed and to just worry about your hockey. I mean, when you go in and you have to worry about kind of building friendships and relationships the whole time, I mean, it can affect your hockey. And I think guys didn't really have to worry about that there. And it just shows like how great our leadership was and how tight we were the whole year.
Declan, every defenseman, I mean, guys have similarities, but they also have differences. And yours is, I mean, your skating is probably one of the best in the team. You have an offensive mind. One of the things I thought that was interesting that Johnny talked about was the idea of taking things from guys' game to develop it in his own game. And one of the things he felt was a real benefit to him as a prospect was that idea that, hey, I can learn something from Declan. I can learn something from Leon. I can learn something from Ville. And as a young group, even though we're young, we're teaching each other elements of our game, or I can watch something in practice that I can adapt into my own and make myself successful. So did that translate? Does that ring true for you? Is that something you were able to do with this talented D group?
Most definitely. I mean, such a wise comment from Johnny, wise man. I mean, you can look at everyone, and everyone has a different strength, like you said, and it's so true. I mean, I would look at Johnny and Sammy and Ville. I mean, I would look at these guys and Leon, like what I could learn from them being like, can I be more defensive? Can I'd watch how they would gap out guys, how they would angle guys. I mean, certain guys are better and certain guys are stronger, but everyone has certain techniques that they use. And you definitely look at that. And that's just another thing that you can add on to competing and pushing each other. I mean, you're going to learn off each other, and everyone's getting better.
So what's the rest of your summer look like, Declan? Do you take any time away from the rink, or do you hop right back in? I guess, what do you do now leading up to training camp next year?
Yeah, I mean, I've taken a couple weeks off, and I'm ready to get back in the gym and start skating again. So, I mean, I got 3 months ahead of me here to get ready and try to make the Jets. So, I mean, that's what I'm going to be looking forward to all summer.
Declan, one of the things you talked about is that idea of making the Jets. Is there a part of you that when you see what's ahead of you in terms of not necessarily the prospects that are with you with the Moose, but that the Jets D core right now is pretty set? Those guys have term. I guess it's a bad thing in the sense that you're waiver exempt. So you are a player who can, be sent to the Moose without having to worry about losing you. But so how does that impact you? I know you, like you said, you're just going with the mindset of, I want to make this team. I'm going to force them to send me down because I'm going to try that hard. But does that change your mentality because you know that you have that flexibility?
Not really. I think I would treat it the exact same. I mean, every summer you just got to look at what you can do and what you can control. And that's working your hardest and just going to get as good as I can over the summer and work on my weaknesses and just show them what I got and come main camp. I mean, you're going to go in there and you just got to compete against the guys that are there. It's funny. You go in, during the year, everyone's your buddy and teammate, but during camp, everyone's a competitor and trying to outcompete the other guys. So that's all I got to do. And I just got to worry about myself and what I can do.
Okay. And then I guess the question for you would be like, if you are, working with this group and you like have an opportunity to take, like I said, the skills that you've learned, do you take that in the summer into your training, or do you still focus on the things that have brought you to this level now?
Definitely take whatever I can from the season and apply it to the summer. Also, I think it's a kind of a mix. I mean, you want to do things that this organization likes and the way we play the game. I mean, the Moose play very similar to the Jets. We've done very similar systems and want to play very similar fast hockey. And I think you got to kind of mix the two and create the best version of yourself over the summer.
Well, Declan, we appreciate you joining us on the end of season roundtable. You have a great summer. We'll see you at training camp challenging for a spot with the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It was a pleasure.
Appreciate it. There he goes, Declan Chisholm, the 2018 fifth rounder of the Winnipeg Jets, who had a remarkable season for the Manitoba Moose and a remarkable playoffs, one that was quite noteworthy, even though, like I said, it didn't last longer than 5 games. But these guys had impact. We saw it with Morgan Barron, 4 goals in 4 straight games. So, that's one of the things that the coaching staff talked about, guys, is that and Mark Morrison talked about it throughout the course of the season, was this idea of having the playoffs to add to development, right? What did he say? 2 rounds of the playoff is the equivalent of like a season. And even though he didn't get the 2 rounds that he wanted, we still saw guys step up and bring elements to the playoffs that they're going to need to learn. And they all spoke about how much they did gain, even though it was only the 5 games.
Yeah, and you always look at those playoffs. I mean, Daryl Sutter put it pretty well earlier in the season that people know who you are from the playoffs. There's guys that can earn new contracts just from 10 games in the playoffs and performing well. There's guys that can create a whole career based on how they play in the playoffs. I think, you think about a guy like, and maybe this is a bit more of a deep cut, but Joel Ward was always such a great playoff player and a great depth piece, solid during the regular season, but then would just elevate to this new level in the playoffs and basically made a career out of doing that and being a valuable piece for any team heading to the playoffs. And talked about that a couple of times with Luke Johnson. Said, you know what, we're all in this to win as a team, but at the same time, this is where guys will make their money for the next season. This is where all the eyes are on you. This is where the hockey world is watching what you're doing and where, in theory, you're playing at your best hockey and you're playing against the best opposition. So it's the best showcase for their talents as well. So it's such a valuable time of year, both in development and for guys as they work towards their job.
And Austin, one of the things that, like we touched on earlier, and I mentioned it to head coach Mark Morrison, was that idea of guys making their NHL debut. And it wasn't just guys who made their NHL debut. And of course, COVID played a role, and, guys who weren't necessarily hurt had to sit out. So that gave opportunity. That's what we always talk about, right? And one of the things we're going to talk about with, Moose general manager Craig Heisinger, I think, is the idea of, look what happens when guys get opportunity. Eric Comrie, probably no better example. We just had Eric on Saturday's show. What an opportunity. He got the opportunity. There was doubt that he could handle it, but look what he did with that opportunity. But that's what I mean. Like some of these guys, like CJ Cease, guys, games in the NHL, Austin Baganski, games in the NHL. So it wasn't just the young Jets prospects that we tend to focus on a lot of times, but it was so many guys who said, hey, here's my opportunity. I'm going to see what I can do. I'm going to try and take advantage of that. So let's focus, though. As I said, we keep those blinders on. Let's focus on some of those guys. And here's the names: Johnny Kovacevic, NHL debut; Christian Reichel, NHL debut; Mikey Eyssimont, we've already talked about; Jeff Malott, Dylan Sandberg, Declan Chisholm, and Cole Perfetti. We tend to forget about Cole Perfetti, but he's a member of the Manitoba Moose. And he, if not for that stupid CBA ruling, would have been a member of this Manitoba Moose club towards the end of the season once he got healthy from his injuries, and probably could have been a very impactful piece with the Moose. So, I mean, just like I said, you're around it. That's the one thing I'm always curious about, though, right? Like these guys, like I said, they're all competitive. They're all going against each other, but yet they all celebrated their victories. So how much of an impact did you see that having on this team as a whole?
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, one moment that definitely sticks out to me, and I don't remember if you were there or not, Dave, but it was during the one game where Christian Reichel scored his first NHL goal, and they showed it on the video screen at Canada Life Center.
Yes.
And the best was seeing, all the guys on the bench, specifically Jeff Malott, just going like, oh my gosh, like just looking up at the screen. It was so cool. It was really incredible to see, everyone just have that moment live in the arena and, just watch that together. So yeah, like I said, there were a lot of guys who, made their NHL debuts and also just played time in the NHL, but that's just great to see those. And then guys also seizing those opportunities with the Moose. One guy, head coach Mark Morrison circled it on too, is Greg Morales, a guy who was brought in as a free agent and was also playing, first line center at times as well too. He had a great season too. So definitely lots of opportunities at both ends. And yeah, guys are always cheering for each other, but also competitors, but it's great to see that other side as well.
And you mentioned CJ Cease there as kind of one of those guys that got in NHL games, and that was a road for him as well, because he got in a game kind of earlier on in his career, and it was a couple of seasons in between those NHL games. So it was almost like a second debut for him. It was pretty cool to see him get that opportunity and run with it, of course, until an injury came in to play there. But talk about a guy who had a really strong finish to the season in Cease. So it was exciting to kind of watch him hit a new level this season, even though he didn't get to take kind of the full benefit of that due to some injury trouble, as so many players on the Moose had to deal with.
Well, I mean, and probably none more important. Well, there was a lot of importance. So I don't want to say that one was more important than the other, but you're right. Greg Morrison, who Kyle just mentioned in the comments, he was an important piece. Kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like you said, Daniel, signing, didn't know much about him, and all of a sudden he's producing points and he's one of the leading scorers. And you're like, who is this guy? But he's a facilitator. He was a necessary piece. Christian Reichel, Christian Reichel was a player that looked like he was going to have some success with the Jets, scoring the goal. But he looked like he had found a role, looked like he had been able to see something that was like carve out a niche, if you will, knew that he could find some spot in that NHL. And again, like I said, that's all these guys sometimes need, is just that opportunity. Nobody, and you guys see it all the time. And I see it. That guy, Christian Reichel, is one of the hardest workers. And he has gone, we saw him at development camp after development camp, and eventually, earning himself an AHL deal with the Moose, turning it into an NHL deal with the Winnipeg Jets. And as a result, now, he's a guy who's, unfortunate blocks that. I think was it Michael Stone in Calgary who took the slap shot that took him out when the Jets were on the road. But tough road for recovery for him. And then, of course, 20 seconds into the game, was it against Texas on that Tuesday? He takes that bad hit, and of course costs him a 6-week. I think Coach Mark Morrison called it a 6-week injury. So cost him the playoffs. He would have been a very big piece. Would have been a nice addition for a Manitoba Moose club. That's really, like I said, he's become just as big a part of it as anyone.
Yeah, you look at, so much of playoff hockey can be who's in your lineup, and no clue what would have happened if Cole Perfetti doesn't get hurt. Maybe there's so many variables that come into play, but
right.
There's one of the most skilled players in the Moose lineup, possibly, right? So there's one guy, and then of course, like we mentioned, Morellis, Reichel, a couple more guys on that depth to give more options, and so the Moose were missing a few key guys into the postseason, so that can tip the scales sometimes, and maybe they're able to cycle in some more fresh legs in some of those back-to-backs, stuff like that. But yeah, it was, it was a season that was characterized so much by who either wasn't in the lineup or who was in the lineup. And you think back to those couple of weeks where the Moose had maybe one NHL contract in their forward group, and it was Nelson Nogier, who's a defenseman playing forward. And they were still picking up wins, which is remarkable. But you know what? There's a lot of credit that goes to the guys who stepped in and stepped up, and then, of course, the coaching staff who was able to get them ready, because the Moose went on a heck of a run throughout that stretch, and as a result, were able to put themselves in good positioning.
And that's one of the things we've talked about, right? Like, this isn't a team that they were able to mix and match. They were able to bring new players in and not miss a beat, which was like surprising, because on some nights you'd be like, okay, where is everyone? Like, the depth chart looks a lot different than it had 2-3 weeks before, but yet these guys didn't miss a beat. And part of that, I think, and we'll go to him right now, because alternate captain Cole Maier is set to join us on this Illegal Curve Manitoba Moose end of season roundtable. So let's welcome him in. I'm guessing from maybe New Jersey, somewhere on the East Coast. Hey, Cole, how are you? How's it going?
Good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
We're doing well. We're into the second hour of this end of season roundtable, talking to the coach, talking to the GM, talking to your fellow players, talking to you right now. So let's, just reflections on, you've had 10 days to think about the end of your season. Obviously not the way you would have wanted it, but overall, when you think back to the season, what are your overall thoughts?
Yeah, it was a super fun year. I think you also touched upon it there. It was a little disappointing at the end, especially because there was no playoffs the year before. So it was something that we were looking forward to for such a long time. I think just reflecting on it, I thought we played some good games in that playoff run there. We just weren't able to quite put enough pucks home, but the course of the year, yeah, it was an awesome time, and looking forward to next season for sure.
And when you look at that playoff run, or the series there against Milwaukee, it was so tight the whole way through. You were able to kind of stretch out the score a couple of times late in the game on home ice. But what really characterized that series as you saw it play out?
Yeah, just tough to find a lot of open ice, especially I think more particularly in the first two games that we played in Milwaukee, and then maybe the game 5 was like that a little bit as well. Just tough to find ice, and Milwaukee did a good job at their net front making it tough, and their goaltenders did a great job as well. So I think just finding ways to get pucks in that net ended up being a tough time for us.
What was it also like though, Cole, just to have, a packed house at Canada Life Center for those playoff games? We talked about it too, like last year having no fans in the building at all and playing at Iceplex, to having, that raucous crowd for games 3, 4, and 5. Just what did that mean to you guys to have that sort of support and backing behind you for the playoffs?
It was awesome. Yeah, it's hard to explain how much it meant to the guys in the room. I know guys in the room would love it coming in from warm-ups. Did you see this or that going on in the stands? Just so much enthusiasm. It was awesome to see the city sort of gather around the Moose there, and it was a lot of fun. It's something that we're looking forward to hopefully getting another chance at.
Cole, one of the things that you were able to do was have your most productive season as a pro in third full season here in Winnipeg. Was there something that changed for you, something in the summer? I mean, obviously you had a lot of success with your lunch pail line, as I coined you guys, with Evan Poli and Nicholas Jones. So, I mean, obviously that probably played a role, but I mean, you're not a guy, you didn't have a ton of PP opportunities. And so what was it, do you think, that worked so well for you this season?
Yeah, I think part of it might be playing with those guys for even Jonesy was basically 2 seasons it ended up being. Just sort of building some sort of chemistry with them. And then also this was my first full season in the league. So I think you do get a little bit more comfortable as time goes on. The first one was cut short with COVID, and then last year was obviously the shortened season. So, and then again, playing with Poles, he certainly helps you get some more open ice out there. So I think those 2 guys do a great job. So I was fortunate to be able to play with them, and yeah, I think just more and more games in the league, the more you're here, the just more comfortable you get as time goes on.
I mean, for your season, you were named the Moose MVP for the regular season. What did it mean to you to gain that recognition from your coaches?
Yeah, that was a huge honor for me. I remember when Mo told me the one afternoon, I was excited, really proud about it. And again, I think a lot of it goes to playing with guys who put me in good spots, and a lot of the time, whether it be Jonesy helping me out on the PK or Poles 5-on-5, whatever it may be. And then obviously our D-corps helped us out a ton from the blue line, doing scoring as well as defending throughout the year. So I think a lot of help from guys ended up making it easier, but definitely a huge honor for me and very proud.
Is there something that you can say that Coach Morrison talked about the idea of the playoffs and how important they were from a development perspective. He wanted you guys to get a couple of rounds in. He felt that would be almost the equivalent of playing a full season. But from your point of view, Cole, what was it like to gain that playoff experience? And obviously, like Austin said, the fans were great, but just from a it's a different game. I mean, it's the same game, but it's a different game. So what was it that you were able to draw from the 5 games that you guys played?
Yeah, I think for the playoffs, I think one big thing that I'd say would take away of it is just making the most of particular chances. I think we felt like we had a couple chances early on, especially in the series, to put some pucks home that didn't get there. And you think if we stick with our game, you're going to get more of them, which in most cases we do. And I think we saw that a lot in the regular season, but I think in the playoffs, they're just tougher to come by. So when you get those chances, whether it be a backdoor open net or a 2-on-1 or something, just making sure that you make the most of those opportunities. And yeah, like you and even Goose touched upon before, playing in front of the fans like that is something that definitely experience helps, and something that we'll look back on and be ready for.
What does it also mean, Cole, to wear the A on your chest this year? I know you've been, we talked about this also at your year-end availability, but to, be a captain back in Union when you were playing college, but to also have an A here in the AHL too. What did that mean for you to support that this year?
Yeah, again, a big honor. I think a lot of it also comes just from learning from older guys in the past, whether Jim's been around or whether it be Lipper from years past, Stoyo, and even Nose from years past. And again, this year, even though we lost him there about halfway through. But I think just learning from those guys, sort of trying to continue what they've preached in the past, and then just sticking with stuff that I've been doing. And it was awesome to see we had so many good guys on the team this year. So just people doing the right thing over and over certainly made it much easier.
And when you talk about having that continuity through kind of the dressing room the last couple of years and being able to foster that environment, how important is that to kind of keep connected with the guys over the off season and keep that rolling into the next year?
Yeah, I think a lot of guys are pretty good friends. So I think you'll certainly be hearing from guys throughout the year, maybe some guys even more than you want to get a little break from in the off season. No, but yeah, you definitely keep in contact with a lot of the guys. And I think some guys enjoyed some time together even after the season there at the end, which was nice, just a little bit, just to be able to hang out with a little bit of a break from hockey. And now that we've had that, I think we'll keep in touch. And I think guys are looking forward to starting to train and skate again here.
Cole, what's it like for you? I mean, like I said, you've been here for 3 seasons now, so you're not quite a Manitoban yet, but you're getting acclimatized to being here. And what's it like for you getting used to living in the city in this province?
Yeah, it's been awesome. I think I've learned so much about Winnipeg. I would say more so this year than even last year with all the. It is a big city, so there's plenty of cool places to go out to eat, plenty of things to do, whether it be the Forks or the zoo or just walking around the Assiniboine Forest, whatever it is. And I think I've grown pretty fond of Winnipeg and getting used to it. But I also will say it's nice coming back. New Jersey, it was 90 the other day, and it felt good to walk outside and be hot again. That's for sure.
So what does the rest of, what's the rest of the summer?
I was just going to say, Austin, quickly, it is warm here now in Winnipeg. We got a little bit of rain, Cole, but it is warming up a little bit, although we're getting a lot of rain.
Yeah,
it was snowing when we were pulling out 2 weeks ago. It was still snowing on us.
Oh yeah, no, that was tough. But yeah, what does the rest of the summer look like for you, Cole? I mean, is it right back to train, right back on the ice, or do you like to sort of take some time away and maybe just decompress a little bit before hopping back into things?
Yeah, so I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Just a little bit of time here, first of all, just to give your body a chance to get back to 100%, whether it be your hips or whatever it was throughout the year, just bumps and bruises. 75 games is quite a long season. It's been a while since I've played that many. So just a little bit of break. Yeah. And then it's nice to be able to get back home and just see friends and family, especially with COVID. Even nothing has really looked the same. I know my family had some COVID stuff going on, so I didn't even really get to see them for Christmas. So it's just nice to be able to see everybody again and get to hang out with them. So you take a week or two, something like that. And by the end of that, I think you're kind of itching to get back out on the ice and start skating again and working on things. That's coming up.
Sorry, Cole. When you do get back on the ice, what's kind of the focus for you this off season? What are you looking to step up heading into your next year?
Yeah, I think skating sort of my first step, as well as just being a good skater. I think you see it now. It's pretty hard to play if you can't move around really well. Our D-men are so good at it, and then again, even the bigger guys on our team are such good skaters these days. So I think focusing on skating will be a big thing for me this summer, and looking forward to getting back at it.
Cole, one of the things that you guys had to do, and we talked about, Austin mentioned the idea of inclusivity, and we talked about how tight this group is, but even just bringing guys in at the end of the season and allowing them to feel comfortable and knowing that they'll be guys who are going to play a role next year. I mean, how important was that to you as one of the leaders on this team? And I know even you don't have to wear an A to be a leader, because there are so many guys in that room who do. But bringing in a guy like Daniel Torgerson and bringing in a guy like Henry Nikkinen and obviously Wyatt Bongiovanni that you guys were able to do, and they all felt comfortable. And David Gustafson told us, he made a point of saying, like, the Swedish guys don't have to talk to the Swedish guys. Finnish guys don't have to talk to the Finnish guys. Might be a little bit easier, but like everybody kind of mixed and matched and felt comfortable being around each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when I think about it, I remember, it feels long ago now, but I remember when I joined the Moose after my college season. It's so different, just the format of playing so many games. And so you don't always have time. You just join from your college team, and you might just be joining for a morning skate or something, and then guys have games. So sometimes it can be hard to meet guys. I know Covey was here with me that year as well, and every year it happens. So I think it was just a lot of guys who sort of had been in that spot and then knew what it was like to be new. And all of a sudden you have to meet a full new team while these guys are trying to focus on games. It can be tricky. So I think just a lot of guys who have done that before understood what it's like being in that spot. So everybody takes a couple minutes here and there just to hang out with Torgi or talk to Nikkanen, or whether it be Bonjo, whoever it may be. I know I sat next to Torgi in the room. He's a pretty funny guy, so it was nice to get to know him. And then Bonjo, yeah, I saw him in college a bit. So you know those guys. It's nice to get to know them, and just a little bit of time here and there, I think, makes a really big difference.
It's just crazy to think too. I mean, like, just it seems like it's been a big talking point this entire year, just how close that group was. Whether it was guys coming from the ECHL or anything like that, they just seem to get climatized so fast. You know, Ville Heinola said that people were laughing at his jokes. Nick Hutchison said that he was almost felt like he was a member of the team when he wasn't on a AHL contract. Like, it's just crazy to see how well guys are integrated into this room.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's nice to have Hutch around, another East Coast guy. He can. Guys were a little controversial about his accent, whether he was from Long Island or Boston or Philly. I think some of the guys in the Midwest get their accents a little bit mixed up, so we tried to straighten it out for him here and there. But yeah, it was nice to have all those guys and everybody fit in pretty well. So it made it really fun to come to the rink every day.
And for yourself, I mean, it really seemed like you were able to kind of build on that offensive side of your game. And I realize you're kind of bouncing around here a little bit, but I mean, you were third on the team in scoring, you closing in on the 20 goal mark. So what for you was able to connect in a way that you were able to kind of build on that offensive part?
I think just being a bit more comfortable. I think being in your third year, maybe in your first season or two, you're nervous about making a mistake with the puck versus looking to make a play with it. So I think being a bit more comfortable, and then, yeah, I mean, the coaching staff does a good job with helping us out with that as well, whether just the way that we played offensively, just having a good idea of where guys are going to be at. And then again, I think I mentioned it, and it was a big trend throughout the season, is our D-men do such a good job contributing to the offense. So if you get it up to our D core, just skate towards the net and hopefully something will hit you and go in there. So I think they do a good job helping out with that.
Cool. One of the biggest talking points, I guess, in addition to, as Austin said, the inclusivity, was the idea that so many guys made their NHL debuts. And one of the things that, like I said, I would see, because I cover the Jets and the Moose, was that I'd be at a Jets game and all of a sudden all these Moose guys would file into the press box, and the press box would be full of Moose players. And they'd be there for Johnny Kovacevic's, NHL debut, or like Dylan Sandberg told us in the end of season media availability, you guys are all huddled around watching Jeff Malotz make his debut in Chicago. So from your perspective, and it's unique because every single guy wants to get that call. Every single guy wants to be the guy the Jets are calling to play at the highest level of your sport. So when you see that, though, when you see that level of closeness, when you see guys celebrating individual accomplishments, what does that tell you about this group?
Yeah, I think it was pretty fun throughout the year, whether we be on the road. Like you said, everybody's debut is so different too. So yeah, if we were on the road, it'd be guys in somebody's hotel room trying to find a place to watch the game and seeing how everybody's rookie lap would go. So trying to make guys a little nervous for that. But it's nice, yeah, when we have a good year, more guys get a chance up there. And I think a lot of it comes from guys who have been around for a bit. So I think people understand just how long it took. I think Mikey played 200 games in the American League before he had his first game. So just to see him go through something like that and just stick with it and stick with it and stick with it, it's awesome to see him finally get rewarded. And yeah, the same with Kobe. We've been here for 3 years now, or however long it's been. And just to see, when you see guys that you're working out with, skating with every day, finally get rewarded and have their dream come true there, it's something special.
Well, we appreciate you dropping in for this end of season Moose roundtable, Cole. So thanks very much for joining us, and have a great rest of your summer. And we'll see you here at training camp.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Good summer, Cole.
You too.
There he goes, alternate captain Cole Maier of the Manitoba Moose, head of the lunch pail line, as someone in this trio coined him. And coined them, I should say. Although I never knew, a little known fact, because it wasn't known to me, that Evan Poli and Nicholas Jones had played with each other since they were 10 years old. I think it was Evan's mom tweeted the picture, and then somehow I came across it. So, that's a pretty fun fact that they were able to return to playing together since they were 10. So I'm assuming you boys both were in on that piece of knowledge.
Well, you got to watch game notes more often, Dave. That was one of our key. That was probably one of our best features, was when we were dropping that. I think Pole's dad actually flipped me that picture kind of at the beginning of the season. He was always tipping me off to the guys that Poles had played with throughout the season. Very handy font of information during the games. But yeah, I mean, those two had played with each other for so long, and of course, Jones and Maier had already become kind of a staple. But and Nicholas Jones is a guy that sometimes doesn't get to as much press, but man, was he valuable for the Moose this season as well. I mean, another guy that when it seemed like everybody was out of the lineup, all of a sudden he was one of the top centers and doing a great job, and really found his offensive touch as well in the second half of the season. So that group together really solidified things for the Moose, and they just gave Coach Morrison an option that he could roll out there whenever he needed to, and whenever the team needed a little bit of a boost, they were able to get out there and get the job done. So multiple times we saw that line be able to turn a game with a single and effective shift. So that's definitely that was definitely an effective trio, and obviously Maier and Polai are back for next season under contract, and we'll have to wait to see what happens with Nicholas Jones.
Yeah, I agree, Daniel. And it's funny. It's one of those things that if you didn't pay attention to the Moose, you wouldn't necessarily know about them. But they were such an integral part of this team and driving what these guys were able to do, in a game in, game out basis. So critical, trio for sure. And like you said, nobody, not necessarily the most household names. I mean, maybe the lunch pail line will eventually catch on. I've been hammering it through and hammering it.
It's like you're trying to make fetch happen here, Dave. I don't know.
Possibly. Hey, I got the GST. As he kind of tweeted it, Jay Richardson tweeted it. That doesn't mean anything. I got the GST going. I told Dennis Bayak. I told the writers. That's how GST really got going. It's a little known fact. But the reality is we can get lunch pail line going, but that's not really super important right now. What is important is talking about this Moose team. So we're going to bring in the Moose general manager, Craig Heisinger, as well as the Jets AGM. So we're going to have Zinger join us right now to talk about his team, the Manitoba Moose. Hey, Zinger, how are you?
Good, Dave. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. You've had 10, 12 days since the season came to a conclusion, and obviously not the conclusion you would have wanted for your group, but now you've had some time to reflect on it. What are your thoughts about the season as a whole?
Well, I mean, I think overall it was a good season. I think going into every American Hockey League season, people like yourselves ask you what your expectations are or how you think your team is. I think the league itself makes it one of the most difficult questions to answer because I think it's a little bit like farming. There's a lot of things that are out of your control. Call-ups. Injuries are injuries at every level, but certainly in the last couple of years where COVID's played a big part, it's not just your own group you're worried about. It's the Jets group you're worried about and how things would go. So I think overall, I don't know that I thought we were going to win when we win 43 games out of 72. I think that's pretty positive. I don't know where we would fit with the youngness in the league, but we had to be one of the youngest teams in the league. We only had one true veteran on any given night, Jimmy Oligny. Luke Johnson was injured a large part of the year. He was veteran exempt. So for the most part, we were as young a group as you could probably get, especially on the back end. So I think all those things are positive. I would tell you I'm still, having a little bit of a tough time wrapping my head around not getting by the first round of the playoffs. I liked our team. I liked our team for the playoffs. And I think we played really well in the playoffs, except for one period. But we didn't win the series. So at the end of the day, that's what gets measured. Did you win? No, we didn't. And I don't know if there should be a but there was a lot of positives for a lot of young players who got their first opportunities to play NHL games. Some guys didn't, and maybe that was a little unfair too. But at the end of the day, I'd say it's a fairly successful season, maybe a disappointing playoff. But that's the way it goes. That's why they make you play the games. If the other team wasn't trying to win, well, it'd be easier.
Zinger, I want to zero in on something that you mentioned there and how young this team was, and you only had a couple of guys who would actually be logged, or one who would be logged as a veteran, one who would be a veteran exempt. But when Mo was on the show earlier talking about just how many guys display leadership qualities, and that's kind of been a theme with the players that we've talked to as well, is that something that you can kind of go into the season feeling reasonably comfortable that you have that leadership despite not necessarily having guys that have 200-300 games of experience?
Well, 2 years ago, the COVID year, we went into the season not knowing who our leadership group was going to be. We weren't sure we had any. Some guys kind of emerged out of that and gave us a little bit of a grasp of what we might have going into the season that we just finished. But when we got started in September, we were trying to cut guys out of our leadership group because it turned out to be a lot more than we thought. One thing about the American League, it is about developing players, and guys develop at different points of their career, not usually when they want to or when the team wants them to, but when they're ready to. So I think we're fortunate. We have a core group of some guys that, as much as they aren't veteran by definition, they're veteran by what they bring to the group. Cole Maier is a great example. Nicholas Jones is a good example. I mean, obviously Jimmy's the captain of the team, but Jimmy was a player we traded for and grew into that position. Certainly didn't bring that the day we got him from Chicago. So I think guys grow into those roles. Jonathan Kovacevic grew into that role. So it happens at different time. I mean, even a guy that joined us middle of the year and plays a position that traditionally is not a leader. I thought Evan Cormier brought leadership to the group because he came in at a time where we had no starting goalie and kind of galvanized the group based on his play. So some guys are leaders all year. Some guys are leaders at different times of the year.
One thing I want to circle in on, Zinger, is just, we talked about last year on this show, actually, just how, tight knit this group was, maybe due to the COVID pandemic and maybe just due to playing at Iceplex and, not being able to do those things outside the rink, but just how tight that group was. How beneficial and how did that translate into this year too? Because like you said, there were guys coming in the lineup at all different times, but it just seemed like they were welcomed into the dressing room with open arms by those guys that were here last year and guys who've been here for a while too. Just what can you say about that?
Well, I think one thing we've done a better job at as a group with the Moose is keep some continuity, not give up on especially American League players too soon. I think Bobby Lynch is a prime example of that. I think Christian Reichel is a good example of that. I think Evan Cormier is going to prove to be a good example of that. But I think we have, Cole Maier has grown into that. I think we've done a better job of staggering contracts and making sure there's crossover of the leadership group, and you're not constantly signing guys to 1-year contracts, that you're sure of the guys that you brought in on 1-year deals if they earn or they fit into a role. I think Greg Morales is a guy that came in on a 1-year deal, but we'll certainly try to keep him here. Nick Jones is another. But the other side of it is you have to give those guys reason to stay. And I think the Christian Reichels and those type of guys of the world and the Jonathan Kovacevics that earn their way and get opportunity, I think that means you got to do less talking, and the proof is in the pudding.
Well, the proof was in the pudding. And even though COVID played a factor in it, one of the things that your group did, and we talk about winning is important, but development obviously is a huge piece of the Manitoba Moose. How many guys made that jump up to the NHL? And it was obviously the 7 guys who made their NHL debuts. Also guys like CJCs, for example, Austin Bagansky, who were able to get into the lineup. From a development perspective, how exciting was it for you to be able to see guys who we may not have seen, like a Declan Chisholm, make his NHL debut? Obviously, Dylan Samberg played, I think, 15 games with the Jets this year. So from your point of view, from a development perspective, how nice was it for those guys to get in and be able to look good doing it?
Well, I think when the American League in general puts out its numbers in the summer for the number of guys that played in the league this year, I think COVID's going to play a big part in that. I mean, the fact of the matter is there is guys that got opportunity to play in games that maybe wouldn't have based on COVID, and they were sort of the last man standing. But those guys took advantage of it. Jonathan Kovacevic proved that he can play games. Declan Chisholm proved that he could play games. Christian Reichel proved that he's not that far away. CJ Zeiss went up and accounted for himself very good. Austin Pagansky got lots of time up there. So I think all those opportunities are good. I mean, Mikkel Burden got up there and got COVID and then didn't get an opportunity. And then Arvid went up to provide the next layer, and then he got COVID. So that opened the door for Evan Cormier to get his foot back in the door in the American League. So the trickle-down effect has a strange way of working itself through. But, I mean, everybody got opportunity. I mean, Greg Morales was our first-line center for a while and proved that he could play up and down your lineup. A guy like Nick Hutchison comes in and pretty much plays the last half of the whole season in the American League after just playing 8 games in his career in Wilkes-Barre. So, yeah, there's COVID there is going to be a silver lining to COVID, and there are going to be guys that make a career that might not ever got a chance based on COVID. So I know we all go on and move past it, but there are some guys that are going to owe their career to COVID at some point.
And when you look at those opportunities and the guys that latched onto them and were able to make the most of them, I mean, you zeroed in on Christian Reichel there getting his games, and he's a guy that has seemingly worked for his chances and worked and came in as an undrafted free agent, signed with the Moose, and has worked his way to signing a new deal with the Jets. So is it really rewarding to see a guy like that and kind of almost emblemize these guys that have taken the opportunities and run with it?
Yeah, I think over the course of the Moose, from 1.0 to 2.0, we've tried to pride ourselves on that and try to augment the lineup with independent players. I think Jeff Millett's another good example. And he started the COVID season on an AHL two-way contract, was released off it so he could go play games in the East Coast League in Florida just to get his legs under him, came back on the exact same contract and earned an NHL contract off it. So those are the things that save you your breath when you're trying to recruit a free agent player, whether it's a junior kid or a college player, to give Manitoba a try. That we have a track record of those guys. I mean, you can go back and list off all the guys from Moose 1.0 days that got opportunities based on those type of contracts, and some work for us now. So they probably go back too far. But at the end of the day, it's not really about there's lots of opportunities given. It's the players that take advantage of it.
Zinger, I want to circle in on Cole Maier too, who was of course named MVP for the club this season. Just what did you see from Cole's efforts this season? Of course, it's his 3rd full year in Antlers with the Moose, but just what he did on and off the ice this year. What was so special about that year to get him that MVP nod this year?
Well, I think his consistency is first and foremost. You know what you're going to get from him every night. He's a durable player. He's responsible in the face-off dot. He plays at both ends of the rink, and he's grown into a leader. Like he's a strong leader. He's earned everything he's got. He's an example for the young players, no matter what type of contract he's on. But I think his consistency and his leadership and what he brings to the rink on a practice day and a game day is what you can count on. And I think Cole's full marks for the MVP of the team. And I think him being the MVP of the team works in conjunction with like the Jeff Malotts and the Christian Reichels of the world, that it doesn't matter what contract you're on, you're going to be rewarded for your play if you deserve it. I mean, the coaches have built this team on accountability, and I think they held players accountable from the first day that training camp got started till the day we lost Milwaukee 2-1 in Game 5.
You know, Zinger, and I want to talk to you about the coaches because, of course, this was Mark Morrison's first year coaching as the head coach. Of course, he has a history here in Manitoba. So what did you think of the job he was able to do and with this group, and obviously with Eric Dubois and Marty Johnson as well?
Well, I can't really badmouth them because they're probably listening. So.
Let's hope.
No, I would. Obviously, Marty and Eric are incumbents, and we know exactly what we're going to get from them every day. One of the biggest adjustments, aside from Mark taking over, and maybe his adjustment wasn't quite as big because we had history with him. He'd worked with the organization for a long time, other than the 5-year sabbatical he took to Anaheim. I think one of the biggest adjustments, both on and off the rink and from a character and culture perspective, was replacing Rick St. Croix. Mm-hmm. And I think Drew McIntyre had some of the biggest shoes to fill coming in. And I think that gets lost a little bit. What a difficult job that is. As much as you're only dealing with 2 players, I think when you're filling the shoes of a guy like Rick St. Croix, who, I don't know, for the last 20 years on and off, other than when the years that Carlisle poached him for wherever he was coaching, has been synonymous with our organization and done a great job with the goaltenders. But I think Drew came in, worked hard, earned people's respect, and really did a good job taking over for Rick, and establishing himself as the developmental goalie coach. And this is the way we're going to do things. And big part of that is not just teaching, but it's cultivating relationships, not just with the goaltenders, but, with the players themselves, because you need the players to help the goalies mostly after practice and stuff. And that's on Drew. And I think first and foremost, he came in and filled real big shoes, because, it'd been Saint's job for such a long time, and he'd done such a good job. You just took him for granted, not just the free Christmas tree. And then as far as Mo goes, like his strengths are people skills and cultivating relationships and caring about people and making sure the players know that someone cares about them, whether they're playing good or bad, that they're still people at the end of the day. And I think our coaching staff, none of them are similar, and they all complement each other. They have a good working relationship. For a fact, they don't all get along all the time. But I'm not looking for 4 people to get along all the time. I'm looking for 4 people to have their own ideas, but have the courage and the conviction to listen to each other and use everybody's good ideas. And I think they do a really good job of that. And I don't know what more. I think coaching in the American League is one of the most difficult jobs there is, because so much of it you don't control. There's mornings when they send out the lineup, and I call them at 2:00 in the afternoon and say, these 2 guys are going up. Lineup's got to change. But we never, from a management perspective, the lineup's never dictated to them. They play who they want. They're allowed to coach, and that's an important factor, not only for their development but for the players' development, because next to the trainers, nobody knows the players better than the coaches.
Well, you mentioned the lineup changing on a dime at times for the coaches, but you're right in the middle of that as well. So what was this season like for you, trying to get guys in and get guys out into the right places and make sure that there were 20 guys to put on the bench or on the ice each night?
Yeah, there was a time there, and I'm not sure when it was, maybe late November through early January, where both teams were struggling with injuries and COVID running through the team. There's a guy that works for us named Spiros Anastas, who does our scouting at the East Coast League and Canadian college level and the American League. And we were in constant communication of who we could recall and who we couldn't recall. And I remember being somewhere and we'd recalled all our players that we had on 2-way contracts. We'd recalled DeRoche and Shaw from Three Rivers. We'd recalled Isaac Johnson, Pomerleau, Boland, everybody from St. John's. And then 2 guys that we'd recalled tested positive. So we were down 2 before we even got going. And And then we recalled Alfaro from Wheeling, who proceeded to test positive the day he arrived. So the other silver lining of COVID is the things that you thought were catastrophic before COVID hit, and that you'd be screaming a blue streak at the window of your hotel room doesn't even rattle you anymore. It's like, all right, well, you can't play. We'll get somebody else. But that goes for the importance of the people you surround yourself with, and the people that you trust. And prior to these last couple of years, Ryan Caldwell had been our East Coast League and American League scout, and last couple of years, Spiros Anistis has taken over. And there's nothing that helps you sleep better at night when you're traveling a lot and not with the team all the time, but responsible for replacing the players, is that the players, and those guys do a fantastic job. And again, you don't always agree on who you're recalling, but you trust what you're getting when you make that final decision.
Zinger, you talk about potentially moving past COVID, and one of those main things is this summer with the draft in Montreal, the scouting combine in Buffalo. Just what's that going to be like, just to have sort of a more normal summer moving forward and then heading into training camp next season?
Well, a more normal summer would be, come July 15th, you'd have some downtime. But clearly we're not at that point when the draft is the 7th and 8th or 6th or 7th, and then free agencies July 13th. Then the week after that, you have American League meetings. And then the week after that, you have the under-18 selection camp. And then the week after that, you have the Holinka tournament. And the week after that, you have, the World Junior, and why to God they're playing at Nugs. That's up for debate. But that's not the debate here and now. So I think what you really look forward to is that the schedule for the 22-23 season starts on time, and everything gets back to normal a year from now, going into the summer, where I guess the combine's pretty much at the regular time. But you think about the players that aren't here. Seattle and Kamloops play Game 7 tonight. There's a Game 7 in the queue tomorrow. So there's still lots of players not available. Obviously, there's the issue with bringing the European players over, especially the Russian players, the Belarusian players. So I wouldn't say this summer is normal, but a year from now, hopefully we're having this conversation and saying, yeah, come July 15th or July 21st, you're going to get a chance to recharge your batteries. I don't think people truly understand the how long this goes. I mean, it's kind of back to when the Jets came back the first time, when it was like 4 years straight of 365 days a year without getting a chance to recharge your batteries. Like at some point, this isn't all the glamour that maybe people think it is. You need a chance to put your boat in the water and fish a little bit.
Well, we talked to head coach Mark Morrison that he plans on heading to Victoria and doing a little fishing. Appropriately, today's the 11-year anniversary for when the Jets announcement was made. And one of the, Daniel talked about opportunity, and one of the players, even though he's not with the Moose, he defined the Moose for his tenure here, though, was Eric Comrie, and we had him on our show on Saturday. From your perspective, how proud are you of what he was able to do at the NHL level? Because, again, if you didn't pay attention to what Eric Comrie did here at the AHL level, there's a lot of people who doubted him. If you've watched him, you probably felt that if he was given an opportunity, he had a chance to seize it. So from your perspective, being able to see, knowing how nice the kid is off the air, but seeing him have that level of success in the NHL, what did that mean for you?
Well, I think anybody that doubted Eric Comrie, I think anybody that doubted Eric Comrie, one, didn't come to the Moose games, and two, didn't know Eric as a person. And I have full confidence in saying that. The effort he puts in every day. I know how challenging it was on his mental health to go through the year of waivers that he went through. I know how much he likes to play for the Winnipeg Jets, and that's something that as an organization we really covet and we should covet. So it's gratifying to see how well he did. And to a certain degree, I'm not surprised because I know how hard he worked. And, a real credit goes to Wade Flaherty, who, as much as anybody, him and Rick St. Croix really believed in Eric. And to both of their credits, they never wavered on their support for Eric Comrie. And with Rick gone, it was sort of left to Wade to, say that he felt he could do it, and Wade clearly did. And as an organization, we went with Wade's opinion, and he was proven to be right. I think Eric proved that he's a bona fide, legitimate National Hockey League backup goalie, and that's a skill in itself. To be willing to accept that role and to know what it takes to go in and maybe only play once or twice every 2 or 3 weeks, that's a hard job. It's not an easy job. People might say, well, how tough is it to earn $1 million and only have to do that a couple times a week? It's real tough. And what you have to go through on a daily basis in practice, that's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of mental toughness on his part. And kudos to Eric for persevering and staying with our organization.
And last one for me here, Zinger. I mean, you're going to return a number of players next season. A lot of guys who were on this team this season will be back, at least in the organization, whichever team they're with. And I think you got a little bit of a preview at the end of the season when you saw Wyatt Bongiovanni, Henry Niekkonen, Daniel Torgerson. How valuable is it for guys to get in that little bit of action? Tyler Boland saw some time as well before lighting things up in the ECHL. How valuable is that time for those players to kind of get an idea of what this league's all about?
Well, it's big for them, and it's not so much on the ice as it is off the ice. It's coming back for training camp or the rookie tournament, and knowing why you turn right versus left in the dressing room. You know which trainers work for which teams. You know who to ask for this and who to ask for that. You know where your towels and your laundry bag go. I think it's really important for guys to come in at the end of a season, even if they don't play, but to get the lay of the land, get to see Winnipeg, get to learn your way around. So when you come back, you're not starting from square one. I mean, one of the most successful players we ever had here was Corey Schneider, the goalie that was Vancouver's first round draft pick. But I remember he decided not to come in when his college season was over. And it took him till Christmas to get his first win the year after, because it takes time to get acclimatized to the league, the city, getting yourself moved in and settled. Whereas if you come here in the spring and we're helping you do all those things, and especially it's more important now because development camp have not been held the last 2 years either. Like you look at a guy like Dylan Sandberg, he's never played in a rookie tournament game, never played in an exhibition game till he got his regular season games this year. So I don't think it can be overstated or understated, whichever the right term would be, of how important it is to come in, one, for the players to know what they're up against the following year. So there's no surprises on the ice, but that there's no surprises off the ice either.
Zinger, last one for me. It's just about the idea of development. And we talked about some of the guys. I'm not going to ask you to go through it individually, but one of the things that, Mark Morrison talked about was the importance of playoffs and how important that would be for his group. He wanted you guys to get 2 rounds because he felt like that would be almost like a season's worth. Well, you got 5 games, so that was like half a season's worth. Did you see anything, though, that these players started to really, obviously Morgan Barron, 4 goals in 4 straight games, Ville Heinola, Declan Chisholm, obviously he stepped up his game. Did you see a lot, though, from your young group? You talked about it to start the interview, how young this group was. Did you see these guys starting to understand the difference and how important that be, especially for the young prospects who are going to want to make that jump to the NHL with the Jets?
Actually, I can't say I saw it on the ice, but I heard it in the exit meetings. No, but that's where the value is, and it doesn't matter where it's at. We had guys like Boland and Isaac Johnson playing in the 3rd rounds of the playoffs in the ECHL, and it doesn't matter what level you're playing at. That the level of the intensity and the hardness of the games, you can be told how hard it's going to be or how different it's going to be, but you don't really know until you play it. One of the questions we asked in the exit interviews is, like, what happened in Game 5? Like our worst period of the whole playoffs was the first period of Game 5. and it probably pretty much cost us a series. So that's something that you hope players can draw on. And I think it goes back to the youngness of our team. We didn't have a lot of playoff experience. We have a high percentage of college players that play only 36 games a year, and they play a playoff that's 1 and out type thing, or a best of 3 at the most. But a lot of their playoffs is 1 and done. So there's not a lot of playoff experience in our group. So you hope that pays off, that guys remember that played this year we'll have enough continuity that if we get in the playoffs next year that they'll remember, and they're in that same situation. And Tyler Boland and Isaac Johnson can say, like, we played 3 rounds last year and we were down 5-2 with 8 minutes to go, but we tied it. Like, let's just keep playing those. But you can't tell people those things. They have to live it, players especially.
Well, we appreciate your time. And, as you detailed in your answer to Austin Zinger, you don't have a lot of summer. So we're going to let you go. We're going to let you enjoy the rest of your day. And we really appreciate you joining us on our end of season roundtable.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Dave. We really appreciate the coverage you give the Moose year in and year out. It's greatly appreciated.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great summer. And there he goes. That's general manager of the Manitoba Moose, Craig Heisinger, as well as the assistant general manager of the Winnipeg Jets. Great insight from all of our guests, whether it was Zinger, Mark Morrison, Cole Maier, Mikey Eyssimont, or Declan Chisholm. Boys, another show just flew by. It was kind of like the season, right? I mean, last year we did our first one last year, and we felt the need to really do something to wrap it up because it was such a unique year. I mean, sometimes I actually felt like the team was playing just for me because, of course, I was pretty much the only not being paid by the team to be watching these games at the Iceplex. And now another unique year where started things off with, like not a lot of fans and you had to deal with COVID, and then to end it with playoffs and that feeling of normality. And Austin, I agree with your answer to Zinger. It does feel normal. We're not there yet. Hockey will creep into maybe late July, August. I'm very much looking forward to 2022-23, when of course we can look forward to hockey, like late June draft, July, development camp / free agency. And then I can stop thinking about hockey and I can travel around Manitoba as much as I do. But anyways, what are your end thoughts for for our end of season roundtable, boys?
Well, it's just another season that was a lot of fun. I mean, the last couple of years have been very successful for the Moose. I mean, they've racked up plenty of wins, even though they had the shortened season last season, but were able to finish second in the Canadian division. This year they finished second in the Central division and got to season playoff hockey for the first time since 2018. Of course, 2 seasons with no playoffs in there just due to COVID and some tough finishes as well. So it was it was a lot of fun to be a part of this season. First time I got to call a full season and playoffs on top of that, so that was fun. And you know what, this Moose team made it so enjoyable, and you know what, our staff is so great, and we get to go through so much.
And hold on a second, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to interject quickly, and to be on TSN 3 and 2.
That was a lot of fun as well. So there was opportunities abound for not just the guys on the ice. I mean, we saw Marty Johnson on the bench of the Winnipeg Jets. Richard Bowie came out of his video shell to be on the bench as well. And our team in house here got to put together a full TV broadcast, and they did a fantastic job. And man, the work that I think I said this possibly the last time I was on the Illegal Curve show is the work that our ticket sales and marketing and community relations departments have done the last couple of seasons. I mean, we went from, okay, you can't have any fans, to, okay, well, you can have 250 fans, to, okay, we're going to try and put 4,000 people in the building, all within the span of a couple of weeks. And to watch them moving 3,500, 4,000 tickets in 48 hours between games 4 and 5 in the playoffs, they've done a remarkable job. They're a small but mighty crew, and the staff off the ice that do so much work and log so many hours did an incredible job this year. And you know what, it was a lot of fun to be a part of, and so impressive to watch.
Yeah, it's also just so exciting to just look forward to next season too. Like we said, there's a number of guys who are coming back on 2-year contracts with this team, and hopefully, like I think some of the guys are saying at the end of their interviews, it's just hopefully that we can keep this thing going. Like, it was really fun to see how electric the crowd was in the playoffs. And, you know, you saw the guys, even in their cellies when they score the goals, how excited they were, how hyped they were when they scored their goals. So, yeah, it's going to be an exciting offseason to see what happens with this Moose Club. You know, like I said, I think I meant more so that the draft's in person this year in terms of being normal, but anyways, it should be an exciting summer for the Moose and the Jets. And honestly, I already can't wait for training camp to get underway in the fall. I'm sure some guys might say otherwise, but I'm ready to get going again right away.
Well, I would be one of those guys who would say otherwise, Austin, because I want to, even if it's going to be, you know, some wetness, I need some summer. I need some time away. I need the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, my August hiatus. So I need that time to be able to just decompress, pull away from Drew and Hezzy for a bit, explore MB and all that stuff. But you know what? Look, there's no question about it. This was another great year. I want to thank you guys for everything, and we got to thank Anthony, of course, as well, and so many of the Moose staff who don't get named but are extraordinarily helpful, as well as, you know, everybody from Perry the security guard to everyone. I mean, Perry was great to me, so I got to give Perry a special shout out. So, look, I mean, it was a lot of fun, and you know, just to finish off on Austin's point, or to add to it, I mean, there's no question in terms of the excitement that the Moose games were drawing, and especially the playoff games. But we were giving away tickets. It was a fun promo for us here at Illegal Curve to give away some tickets to fans who wanted to get up close and personal in the Illegal Curve zone. I'm not sure the Moose ticket staff liked it when I was calling it that, but regardless, that was what I gave the moniker of that place. And the truth was, I got so many messages from people that we'd give those tickets away to. What a blast they had, and taking their kids and sitting up against the glass. And then, you know, in the playoffs, like, I was getting like just inundated with messages from folks who wanted to go to games. So I think there's a lot of excitement. You know, like I said, people support this team because there's the Moose. People support this team because there's Jets prospects. Maybe people support this team because Austin Saragusa and Daniel Fink are a part of it, or because they like Illegal Curves coverage. Regardless of why you support the Manitoba Moose, we thank you for joining us. Of course, the replay is going to be on this YouTube channel, Illegal Curve Hockey. You can watch it there. We're going to cut all the interviews and put them all together so you can download and listen to podcasts. We really much appreciate your support, and we thank you very much for joining us on the end of season Manitoba Moose 2021-22 roundtable. So have a good rest of your night, and we will talk to you very soon.